Look at all these, everybody. Dan the Wolfman here, and we've already looked at his collection, his amazing pistol and revolver collection in different sections. Make sure to check that out. I'm here with the one and only Slick50. How's it going, sir?
It's going outstanding.
Why don't you tell everybody about your background, your career, and take it from there.
I started back in January the 17th, 1968, at a little apartment with 3 deputies, one nighttime sheriff, and a chief deputy. Same department's got 175 people, and they don't have enough people now. I retired officially January the 17th, 2018, which is 50 years to the day. But I am still doing firearm classes for retirees and police officers and law enforcement.
So you worked in law enforcement. We looked at some of your badges for 50 years.
50 years.
50 years. That's incredible. That is really incredible. And you've also been a firearms trainer a lot of that time.
35 years.
35 years as a trainer. So you started on a small department in Mississippi, is that what you said?
That's correct.
And then how long were you on the small department? And then where did you kind of go after that?
Well, I was totally, I think it was, and what was it, about 8 years? And then I went with the Mississippi Highway Patrol as a state trooper, or we were patrolmen in those days, they're troopers now. And I was with them for 5 years and went back with the sheriff's department working narcotics. And we were there for, I think, about 3 or 4 more years before I came up to DeKalb County, Georgia, and went to work there. And I retired officially retired back in 2004.
Okay.
And then I went as a reserve officer for Stone Mountain PD.
So, okay, so originally those first 2 jobs were pretty much late 60s all through the 70s.
Correct.
Which I assume means you were a revolver guy on duty back then. Do you remember some of your carry pistols with the first department? And once you got to the highway patrol, was it a Smith & Wesson and eventually the Smith & Wesson Model 27 we looked at? Guys, this collection's amazing. You're going to want to check it out.
No, back in those days, the pay a month was not really a lot, like, $500 a month for taxes. I had to borrow my daddy's Sam Brown and his 12-round belt magazine and his Model 10, which I carried, and that was involved in one of the incidents.
Okay, we'll get to that. So that's the Model 10 that we looked at. And so you were carrying ammunition in single cartridge
That's
loops.
Right, 12 round.
Yeah, things are a little bit different nowadays. That would really stink to be in a firefight getting shot at. And hold on, sir, please don't shoot me in the face while I'm dropping one by one.
Yeah, it wasn't no timeout.
No timeouts. Okay, so you had your daddy's Model 10, thankfully. I guess that served you well. Do you remember what you can either go chronologically your OIS, or do you want to say what your next carry service weapon was at your next job after that? Up to you.
Highway Patrol, we were first issued Model 27s.
Okay.
The trooper, and I'm sorry, the Highway Patrolman, and it was the 44 frame was 357. It felt like 10 pounds on your side. But before we graduated, they had gone to the Model Smith & Wesson 66. So that's what I carried to throughout the Highway Patrol.
Okay. Is the 27 model you have now, is that the one from
Yes.
way back when?
No, oh no.
Or 28?
No, that's they kept that. It wasn't buying it at the time.
I love it. It's amazing, guys. I never held one before. Looking at his collection, it's awesome. Hopefully, we'll warm up and we can shoot it someday soon. So then you had a Model 66. Now, were you guys actually carrying with 357, or were they still doing like 38 round nose lead, 158, pretty much crappy
No,
stopping ammo?
no,
Back then?
we carried 357. I can't remember. I think it was like 138, 58, whatever grain, hollow point, and in the weapon. Then we had 6 hollow point and 6 armored piercing.
That way, in case they were behind a car, behind cover, you could. Things were
Well,
really bad if you had to go to your third revolver reload. Things were pretty bad.
yeah, well, the training we had at the academy, we never used the removing them from our,
Yeah,
we brought them out of our pocket. So anyway, never got in a situation where you had to reload.
that's good, I'm sure. But that's before everyone was carrying on the streets their G2Cs and their stolen Glock 19s. So they didn't have huge magazines to attempt to kill all the cops in ambushes like they do nowadays. Um, okay, so you can say what department you went to when you went to DeKalb and what you carried there, or you can talk about your OIS's officer involved
Well,
shootings.
right before I went there, I
order.
worked narcotics and I was carrying a 45. And when I got to the cab, they was issuing 66s. And I couldn't stand them because of the trigger pull, even on the highway patrol.
Yeah,
And anyway, you had the option of buying and carrying your own Colt 45. And my wife bought me one and brought it up here. And I was happy to get it because I'm sorry, but I like Smith and their semis, and I got 44s and all that. And but the 66, what my favorite 686 was a wonderful gun. But we started carrying the 45s, and later, for whatever reason, we went to H&K USP 40 cals, which was a very nice weapon. I have one of those too.
That's not bad. That's not bad. So you were rocking a 1911 for a good while. I assume most guys that carried their 1911s really enjoyed everything, all the attributes of single action, the wonderful accuracy that they have. And that's a good wife. Did you keep that one? Anyone that buys me a nice
Oh no,
gun?
that was mine. It's mine. It's Miss Ann. It's the name of it, Miss Ann. It's a Pizza Hut special.
Okay, that's the Pizza Hut special. All right, we'll get to Pizza Hut. We'll get to Pizza Hut, and then the HK40. So the USP. Saw that in your collection, and you said you shot with 5,000, 50,000 rounds or something.
50,000 rounds.
50,000 rounds out of it. So HK Love, we also will see that on the channel. Either we just did or
Without
coming
cleaning,
up.
without cleaning, so the ones at the department had no reason to come up with a gun that would not shoot. So I proved that my gun, not the department's gun.
Yeah.
So
HKs are reliable, so that maybe they're worth the money if they can go 50,000 round counts, which we talked about in the MK24 slash 45 compact Navy SEAL gun videos, which he actually made a cameo appearance in. He didn't plan it. He just popped up and fired off a couple of rounds of the 45 compact.
that was
You liked it. The LEM trigger, you liked it.
The trigger pull.
He liked the LEM trigger because he was used to the DASA on his gun.
I quit saying, don't be in the wind, letting it blow, because the trigger will go by itself.
Well, it's
nice.
still a long pole, but they tried to make it. It was Ken Hackathorn and Larry Vickers, so they were 1911 guys,
Yeah.
and they had a lot of input over at HK to make that happen.
It's got a long trigger pull, but when it gets there, and
When it gets to the wall, it's nice and beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful, especially if you're a fat appendix carrier and you don't want to shoot your pecker off. So, wow. Okay, so DeKalb, when you retired in DeKalb, were you guys still carrying the HK40s?
Yes, that's when I retired. That's what we was carrying. I had got one because I went to armor school, and we was able to get them at a good price. So that was, I enjoyed it. I started to get a 45 that you like,
Yeah.
the compact. I didn't like the metal mags, so
Okay.
that was not the gun. Enjoyed the gun, but I just didn't like the magazines. So
And okay, so do you want to get into any of your, if you're willing to share with us some of your officer-involved shootings, and if you can remember what firearm or caliber it was, that would be interesting to some people, I'm sure too.
well, one was with the 38 in the emergency room of a hospital, so I didn't have to wait long for the doctor.
How did you get in a shootout in an emergency? Were you just taking somebody in?
Uh, no, every time I got had problems, it was somebody else that arrested, and they had somebody at a mental hospital in Chicago decided to send a guy that should not have been out home for Christmas,
Hmm.
and we got him, and he was jumping up and down the bed, barking. And when we tried to get him, it was just like grabbing a wild up. He didn't weigh 130 pounds soaking wet. He was like a weightlifter.
But crazy strong is crazy strong.
When they got him to the hospital, I'm sorry, when they got him to jail, he went in crazy on somebody and they didn't like it. So he wound up having to go have his eye above his eyes sewed up. And the doctor refused to, the doctor refused to not treat him unless I handcuffed him, which was against my wanting. And anyway, I wound up with the nurse running out, the doctor running out, and him coming out with a scaffold and the big old IV pole.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
So he started trying to swing on you and fight everybody, and
the 38 went 5 times and never stopped him.
Yikes!
3 in the 3 center mass and 2 in the leg.
Wow.
And then one of them went through, and one of the doctors was making a turn, and it shot his heel off and grazed his his heel. So it was like the Three Stooges. It's funny now, but it wasn't at the time because he liked to beat me down with that pole.
So 38 or even any caliber on a crazed or drugged out person might not get the stops you want. Especially back then, maybe it was an inferior ammo or not even a hollow point or not a good hollow point design.
This was round nose lead.
Yeah, so any department heads that even LAPD to like mid 70s was making cops carry round nose lead that is just a little 35 caliber pebble going through you. That doesn't deliver energy or expand or do any amount of tissue crush.
Well, back then, it was like most officers had to buy their own weapons, and at the paychecks, a gun was about a month's paycheck. So departments that issued it was like Smith & Wesson, a Colt Police Special. That was a wonderful weapon. It looks funny now, but it was also like a nightstick with a 6-inch barrel.
So yeah, the guys were, and that's why they started doing shrouds. I met a guy in Georgia actually who told me his father was the man, I don't know if it's true, that was responsible for Smith & Wesson putting shrouds on eventually because they were whacking too many guys in the head. People are against that nowadays, but that's better than trying to be PC, and now you have to do deadly force, and people don't understand that, because then you're in a deadly force situation last second, and it's dangerous for the cops, the citizens around, and even the bad guy, as opposed to getting a thump on the head, as long as it wasn't being abused.
But you got to remember one thing, we're not shooting to kill. We're shooting to stop the threat. Mm-hmm. And my training is, when the threat ceases, the firing stops. You stop shooting. But I cannot get in somebody's head. That's their situation.
Yeah, well, so, okay, that's a crazy story, but we got to hurry up. What's your next officer-involved shooting story you want to tell people?
Highway 90 in South Mississippi with a guy that just shot a Mobile cop in a robbery. That the officer walked into the place and didn't know it was his mom and pop store, and the guy thought he was there, and he shot him. Didn't kill him, but anyway, he went through a bunch of. This was in Mobile. He was going westbound toward into Mississippi, and it was bullet holes all in that car. It was a 90-year-old little lady driving her Cadillac, and he had her holding her hostage. And I was with the Highway Patrol, and they advised, the commissioner advised over the radio that the Highway Patrol, the car was not coming through one of our roadblocks. So I had the 66, and we each stopped the vehicle. Everybody had this station, and I ran up to shoot the back tire out, and my 66 trigger fell off. So my wonderful Argentina 45, $75 at the pawn shop. I whipped it out from behind me, pulled the trigger. It went on fully automatic, and 7 rounds went out, and the spring and the follower went out in the air.
So you got one long burp, and then boom, it was done.
And everybody's looking at me like, I mean, we didn't carry fully automatics, but I had one that day.
Okay, so you shot a tire, and I imagine the burp went up in the air, and you
well, I wanted it handed off to somebody else. I didn't know what else it was going to do.
Okay. Any others you want to share real quick?
The Pizza Hut on Memorial Drive in Georgia is one that my wife had called me to come pick her up, that they had gone to a concert at the stadium, and I was going, but my partner got sick, and I had worked a secondary job. I'm coming to pick her up. She calls me and says, come by the Pizza Hut on Memorial Drive. Well, I had a few words because I told her to never go down Memorial Drive. A lot of robberies, a lot of shootings, and all that. So I arrived there, and I started go in, and I pulled around the other side. You couldn't go around, so I had to back around, and they let me in the other side. And she had a drink, Coke, something, whatever, and I went up to pay for it. I wasn't there maybe 10 minutes at the most, and I just told the other officers there, well, there was a civilian, that as chicken crap as the department was, I hope I never had to pop around. 5 minutes later, it was Shootout at the OK Pizza Hut. And the welcome sign...
The guy was mugging the place or causing trouble with...
No, that's the second time in a week that he'd been there. That he'd robbed 8 places around there. Anyway, he was hiding by the dumpster. And he ran in with the 2 guys, brought him in, and he says, everybody hit the floor, blah, blah, blah. And I'm sitting there saying, no, this ain't going. And then we had our exchange of fire. He wound up, this section is armed 45, I carried the 45, took out all this radius bone, and the x-ray showed it looked like midnight with stars, and almost made a girl boy out of him.
So 45 works when it hits, is what you're saying. Momentum matters.
Well, the problem was he had a hostage, and I had to shoot the bad guy between the hostage's legs.
So I think we got more stories from you coming up in the future, because I think you even got 1 or 2 more stories like this. Before we go, what is your favorite handgun caliber? And do you have a favorite manufacturer?
I never was in the early Glock days when they first came out. It was a plastic toy. It just didn't feel right. Most time I'm carrying a Glock 380 or a Glock 19, and 45 is still my favorite. I don't care if it's Smith & Wesson. I don't care if it's as long as it's on the 911 frame.
Yeah,
I'll enjoy it. So I've got about 5 of them, and one of them in 9mm. That's real sweet.
Hopefully we'll shoot some of those. And okay, so I think the moral of one of your stories is you could be at the pizza parlor. You never know when you're going to need a gun. So you've been carrying a gun for what, 50-some years or longer?
Yes, 50 years. Usually had a badge and ID.
And you still carry every day?
credit card. Don't leave home without it.
Don't leave home without it. Hopefully you guys are learning from all that. We got about 45 seconds left. And maybe we can come back and do more stories with you. I think everyone's going to love this, and they should learn from people that are elder and have been there and done that. Though you act younger than me. But anyway, is there anything you want to say or tell the folks out there?
Teach your wife how to shoot and your kids. Train them. My grandbaby is 8 years old, and she will not. I can leave a loaded pistol on the floor, and she will not touch it. Teach these kids not to touch it. She will. She knows to go get her mother and daddy or a grown-up.
So education and safety.
Education.
Since childhood, and then they don't go around murdering everybody. Isn't that amazing? It's amazing. It's almost like if parents do what they're supposed to do, and America is America.